Okay, so this is set 111 practice problems for Algebra 2, and it is a money problem. Just briefly, 35 nickels, quarters, and dimes. The value is $5, and there are 2 times as many quarters as nickels. So we talked about how when you have this kind of a problem, you've got 2 types of problems. Or 2 types of equations. The first equation that we're going to do is a number equation. So the number of nickels plus the number of dimes plus the number of quarters is 35. And the second type of equation is a value, so how much each coin is worth. So the value equation is going to be 5 times the number of nickels plus 10 times the number of dimes plus 25 times the number of quarters. And instead of $5, we'll say 500. And then the third equation has to do with that extra part, and that extra part being the 2 times as many quarters as nickels. And so we will rewrite that as 2 times nn is equal to nq. So going back to our original equations that we started with, here they are. And the first thing we're going to start is do some substitution with the number of quarters. So there are 2 places where we can substitute it in. So we'll go ahead and plug those into the equation. So we're just plugging 2nn into each equation. So instead of 25 times the number of quarters, 25 times 2nn. And then what we'll do is we will just simplify those. We can put all of the n sub n's together, so n sub n plus 2 n sub n gives us 3 n sub n, plus the number of dimes is 35, and then in the second equation, first of all we're going to do 25 times 2 times the number of nickels, we'll get 50 number of nickels, and then we add that to 5 times n sub n, and we get 55 number of nickels plus 10 times the number of dimes is 500. So now we've got we have 2 equations. So those 2 equations, we're just going to figure out what we need to do to put those 2 equations together. And we'll start with those 2 equations, and what we need to do in order to eliminate is we're going to have to multiply that top equation by negative 10. So we'll go ahead and do that. Multiply the top. 3 times negative 10 is negative 30. Negative 10 times the number of dimes is negative 10. And negative 10 times 35 is negative 350. Okay, now we'll just add those 2 equations together, and we'll get 25 times the number of nickels. Then number of dimes drops out, and then we'll get 150. Then all we have to do is solve for the number of nickels, and the number of nickels is 6. From here, we'll go back to our original equations, and those are our original equations, and we figure out, okay, we can sub in the number of nickels for 6. 2 times the number of nickels will give us the number of quarters, so the number of quarters is 12. Then we can sub number of nickels in and the number of quarters into that first equation, and we will get that 6 plus the number of dimes plus 12 equals 35. Put those together, the number of dimes is 35 minus 18. So ultimately the number of dimes is 17. So now we have all 3 parts, number of nickels, number of dimes, number of quarters, and there is our solution.